We'll begin with the Jacksonville Jaguars, Ziggy. I believe this is a team that you've been high on, even dating back to last year, because they've got a lot of guys that you're a fan of, at least in our Dynasty League. I know Calvin Ridley was your boy at one point. So I look over Jacksonville at the moment, and obviously Trevor Lawrence is the key piece there. When he started, it didn't start great with Urban Meyer. Doug Pederson comes in with new weapons. He had Christian Kirk last year. Evan Ingram had a breakout season. Even Zay Jones played well. And all of a sudden, it started to come together a little bit more for Jacksonville. They go on a run to the playoffs. They beat Tennessee in essentially that last week of the season playoff game, even though Ryan Tannehill was out. And then they come back against the Chargers. I know one of my friends had a big bet on Los Angeles in that game. And, I think it was 27-0 when he looked at me and said, man, I wish I just doubled down when I had the chance. And, a couple hours later, that was devastation. But then they go and they play the Chiefs really close. They almost win that game. So a lot of optimism surrounding this team. I think the big question is, does Trevor Lawrence take that jump up again to superstar level? Because right now he's flirting with being a star in the league, but can he become one of those top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL? What do you think about that? Obviously, there's a lot to talk about Jacksonville, but we'll start with, does Trevor Lawrence become a superstar this year?
I think we've already seen superstar Trevor Lawrence. The Jaguars team last year was really 2 different teams. Mm-hmm. There was the team going into the Week 11 bye, right? They were, 3-7? They'd lost 6 of their last 7 after a 3-1 start. The offense was bad. The defense was bad. Nothing was really working. And then coming out of that bye, to the surprise of a lot of people, they went on a huge hot streak, right? They won a bunch of games. They made the playoffs. They won 6 of their final 7. Lawrence was really good. Etienne was really good. Christian Kirk was really good. Darius Williams, Devin Lloyd, a lot of players stepped up and played well into the postseason. So I see no reason to think they won't be able to carry on that same momentum going into next year.
Yeah, no, I remember watching them towards the end. It's kind of the inverse of the Titans, who we'll get to in a second, where Tennessee starts 7-3, lost their final 7 games. Meanwhile, Jacksonville had this huge ascent up the AFC South, and like we said, got them into the playoffs. Not a lot of movement on the offense for them. They lose Jawan Taylor, their left tackle. They're hoping that they can replace him. Their first-round draft pick will come in. That's Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma. So we'll see if he can be a capable replacement. But other than that, really not too many people leaving at all for this Jaguars offense. A huge move was bringing back Evan Ingram. But something that we mentioned earlier, or someone, is Calvin Ridley now joins this receiving corps. And you're going to have Ingram, Christian Kirk, who was extremely valuable last season. I remember a couple people I knew who drafted him in fantasy were thrilled with the Christian Kirk performances, especially later on down the stretch of the season. But Calvin Ridley comes in now after a year suspended from gambling, and he basically has missed 2 years because of the mental health issues. Do you think that Calvin Ridley could reclaim his spot as a number 1 receiver in the NFL, Ziggy?
I think he can, but the good news for the Jaguars is he doesn't have to, right? We've seen how explosive Calvin Ridley can be, but I really don't think he'll be worse than, say, Adam Thielen was in Minnesota last year. All they really need from him is for him to be a wide receiver, too, that can run routes effectively and on time. And that he can do, right? You put Ridley together with Christian Kirk, they'll get to keep Evan Ingram around for another year, who was impressive last year, a functional receiver. Mm-hmm. Ridley's got a high ceiling, right? We've seen that he can be incredibly good. He doesn't get enough respect for some of the seasons that he put together in Atlanta before he was suspended, right? I mean, the dude put together a 1,400-yard season.
He had that one huge season. His other ones weren't as statistically impressive as that.
I mean, he put together 17 touchdowns in the 2 seasons before that. He's never put up a full season under 800 yards. He is a reliable, productive receiver with a huge ceiling.
Yeah, but
I think they should be excited to get him back.
Yeah, but I'm thinking part of what made, obviously, he had to leave for mental health and that, take care of your business. But what made that so disappointing for at least Falcons fans from a football standpoint was he had just broken out the season before. If you really were to say, what's his breakout season? 1,400 yards right there. There were a lot of expectations for him kind of taking over that spot in Atlanta, becoming that guy in place of Julio Jones, really. And so it was sad to see the past 2 seasons how they've gone for him. If he comes in and if he could play anything like that 1,400-yard receiving Calvin Ridley, I mean, Trevor Lawrence could set the league on fire this year because that offense should be good. Defensively, it's okay. There's really not a great defense in the AFC South. There are some star players on Jacksonville. They're led by Tyson Campbell and Josh Allen. But really, they are going to need some guys to step up. And particularly, you can look at Trayvon Walker, who was not that long ago the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Was he used properly last year? Some people would say no. If he can come in to this season, 2023, and play anything like what a number 1 overall pick is supposed to, all of a sudden now you're looking at a defense with a little bit more juice to it. So the Jaguars defense, while not scary on paper, does have enough youth to it that people take jumps. You could be looking at one of the better defenses in the conference, in the division.
I'll tell you what I think the magic number is for the Jaguars defense: 18. I think that if Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker can combine for 18 or more sacks, this is a team with an incredible ceiling. The offense should be good to great. If the defense can just get pass pressure, I feel like we say this with half the teams in the NFL, but if they can just pressure the opposing quarterback, this is a team, I think, with a genuine Super Bowl ceiling. They've got an easy division, all things considered. They've got a star quarterback. They've got a great offense. Walker Little at left tackle for those first few games will be tough, but if he's not good, Cam Robinson can come back after his suspension, step in and play. The defensive line is just what worries me. But if they're good, this goes from a team looking at a first or second round playoff exit to a team that can really compete with the big boys in the AFC. You
see, it's funny because the same way that you were talking about pass rush being your concern, for me, it's actually the secondary. I look back and I said Tyson Campbell had a breakout season last year. He was awesome. But beyond him at cornerback, really there's not that much depth to the
Darius Williams is good.
Darius Williams is good. But again, he can be up and down at times. And then after him, there's really no one there. So that's where I'm a little more concerned with Jacksonville. It's actually in the secondary. And now I'll sound like you. For a lot of teams in the NFL, we're talking about their secondaries being a concern this year. But for Jacksonville, I'm more concerned about the secondary actually than the D-line. And maybe that's because I'm confident in Trayvon Walker having a better year, and we know what Josh Allen is. But we'll see. If they're able to pull it together and have those young guys, like I said, step up, all of a sudden, if this defense is good, you're talking about a legit Super Bowl contender, as you said. So exciting times to be a Jaguars fan. It is crazy when I think since 2000, I was looking the other day, 14 seasons with 6 wins or less. I mean, it has been for a long time now pretty tough being a Jaguars fan. They have their, flash in the pan every once in a while, like in 2017. But generally speaking, when you think of bottom feeders in the NFL, it's been Cleveland, it's been Detroit. They're a little more pronounced than Jacksonville. But then Jacksonville has been right there as one of the worst teams in the league for a long time. Kind of fun to see them finally flipping the switch, and we'll see what happens.
All I'm saying is this: the last time the Jaguars were 2-6 and then overcame that record to make the playoffs, they made the playoffs the next 3 years in a row after that.
Just saying. Yeah, I mean, what was going on in the league last year? There's something happened because Detroit, them as well. What were they? 7-1 down the stretch or 8-2?
Yeah, there were a lot of teams that it seemed to really click for them.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with Jacksonville.